Hi guys, welcome to my first YouTube channel. My first YouTube channel. Of course, it's my first YouTube channel. Hi guys, welcome to my first YouTube video. My name is GLORIA MUENI. I am 22 years old, just done with university, and yes, I'm quite excited to start this channel. So basically, the channel is going to be about pregnancy and motherhood. Mainly, I might drop in a few vlogs here and there, and yes, a few videos about me baking, because it's what's keeping me afloat right now. But it's going to be mainly about pregnancy and motherhood. Yes, so you're gonna go with me through my journey from when I was pregnant. I'm not pregnant right now. Till now. And we're gonna grow together as babies growing together, and as my experience is also growing. So thank you for subscribing. Kindly share and like. Welcome to the family. So excited to have you here. Okay, so we'll start with how I knew I was pregnant. Obviously, I took a pregnancy test. But before that, I missed my period. Technically, no. Did I? It's almost a year since then, so I can't quite remember. But before I missed my period, I had gotten some symptoms. But the funny thing is, at least from what I know, or how my body is, a lot of pregnancy symptoms feel like period symptoms, your menstrual cycle symptoms. Yes, so my breasts were sore. I looked like I had gained a bit of weight. I was very tiny, tinier than I am right now. I was very tiny. So any slight gain in weight would show on my body really quickly. So I had gained a little bit of weight, and I was cramping. Very slight. Normally my period cramps are usually quite painful, very painful, horrendous. Absolutely. Yes, you get the point. But this one wasn't that painful, and it was on and off. But my periods weren't coming, so it's just pain and no blood. Then a day after when I was supposed to have my period, my menstrual cycle is quite regular, like to the T. Like if my app says you'll start today, it starts today, not tomorrow, not the day before. Usually, yes. So one day after, and my period didn't come, my head already knew. I know it sounds weird, but I knew no, something is amiss. And it's not those ones of the usual pregnancy scare. No, my head knew this is it. So I called my boyfriend and told him I'm one day late, and he said I worry too much about everything. So 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, about 4 days after I told him, it's been 4 days, my period has never been late for this long, so I'm gonna buy a pregnancy test. And he said okay. So where I live, the main road is quite far, and that's the only place where there's a chemist. So I had to take the test, or rather buy the test when I'm leaving the house to go somewhere. Yeah, so I made plans with a friend. I went, and while there I bought the tests. I bought two, the strips, not the fancy one, the blue one, no, just the strips. They go for 50 shillings. Yes. So I bought them. I came home and I took a tumbler. I peed in the tumbler. I put the stick in, and if you've ever taken those tests, the results come quite quickly. They say 5 minutes, but before 5 minutes, usually the lines have shown. So I took the test, I put it down. I didn't even wait until the way I see people, they leave it there and go, and the way you see people leaving it there and going and doing what, 5 minutes, then coming back to the test. No, I just looked at it and saw the first line and saw the second line, and yes, 2 lines meant it was positive. I never took the second test. I had bought 2, saying, because it was in the evening now, she had come back home, saying because most doctors, or from what I've watched, people advise you to take the test in the morning. The results are more conclusive then. So I had decided, since I can't keep the tests the whole night knowing I have them, I'll take one at night and one in the morning. But after I took that one, the one I took at night, I was completely sure, because I had a feeling before, the test is saying positive, there's no way it can be wrong. So I took it. I called my boyfriend and told him that, and he said whatever my decision will be with how I want to move forward with that information, he'll support it. And now I had to think, because like I said, I'm 21. And I live in my parents' house. I am not married. So how am I keeping a baby? So after that, my first trimester, I was officially aware that I was in my first trimester. So the next day, the immediate day after I took the test, I was still cramping and I started bleeding, especially when I went to the washroom. And for any long call, short call, I'd bleed. So like spotting. And I was really worried, because now I was thinking maybe it's a miscarriage. And then let me tell you something. Google will really stress you out. So Google was telling me I was at high risk for missed miscarriages or those things. Yeah, so I really thought I was miscarrying, but I didn't want to think about it too much. I just decided what will happen. And yes, so after that, at this point, it's around right after my birthday, so after April 17th, there, I'm applying for attachment. Or rather, I've got an attachment. So I'm getting the things that are required for the application, for to be submitted to the workplace. So that is the NHIF. I never had NHIF before. The NSSF, I never had NSSF before. Those things. So I'm going to town a lot. Now, because I'm bleeding and I'm going to town a lot, I decided I'm going to see a gyna to know what's happening, yeah? So I go to a gyna, a very nice gyna. She was really nice. Yes, it was quite expensive. Was at the deem as expensive. I know most people will say it's not expensive, but I've never seen a specialist outside our family doctors, and I wasn't comfortable seeing that. I know my parents wouldn't have done, but I was very scared. I didn't want none of that. So I went to a specialist in Upper Hill. It was quite expensive. So I paid consultation, which was 3,000, and what is this called? An ultrasound, which was 2,500. So the ultrasound was required by the doctor. The doctor is the one who sent me for the ultrasound. She said she wants to know if there's anything viable inside to check even. if I'm actually pregnant. She didn't believe that I took a test at home. But yeah, so that and a test to check my blood group. I didn't know my blood group also. So she was scared that I may be rhesus negative and my antibodies are fighting the baby's antigens, something of the sort. I don't know. Whatever we learned in biology. But yes, she was scared that's what was happening. So I took both. I think the test was around 500 shillings, the blood group test. I don't remember well. So I took both, and what is it called? The ultrasound showed there was a viable fetus embryo. I think at that point it's an embryo, and there was a fetal pole, a heartbeat. You couldn't hear it, it wasn't developed enough to hear, but you could see it. You could see a light flickering on the ultrasound. And yeah, so I took it back to the doctor. My blood group was A positive, so it wasn't the rhesus whatever. So she prescribed some supplements, progesterone supplements, to help with. She said it won't prevent a miscarriage, but it will help. I don't remember, but it was helping. And so after that, I went home. Those progesterone tablets were expensive. A lot of the medicine she put me on was expensive. At this point, I had nausea. I had nausea from the beginning. Like after I took the test, I knew I was pregnant. My nausea kicked in immediately. And it was the whole day, not morning sickness. The whole day, I couldn't eat. It was just annoying. So I came back home. I told my boyfriend what the doctor had said. Nini. So now he wants to come help me tell my parents. Me, I don't want that. I want to be able to tell my parents myself because I know them best. I'm just lying. I wasn't going to tell them. Yes, so I start my attachment. I live quite far from town. My attachment place was in town, and I'd boda all the way every morning, no matter how cold, no matter how. It was so annoying. So I couldn't eat most of the day. I'd boda the whole journey, and yeah, it was quite hectic. So I'm working 8 to 5. I can't eat. I had food aversions also. So people eating near me walking through places where there was food smelling, I'd feel horrible. And I'm also nauseous throughout the day. I don't know if I can say the good thing or the bad thing. It was bad to me because having the feeling of wanting to vomit and not vomiting to me seemed worse than actually vomiting. So, and peeing a lot. Shit, you pee a lot. During that first trimester, you pee a lot. I was peeing a lot. Also, it was cold. It was now April going to June. It was quite cold. So I'm going to work every day, 5 times a week, 8 to 5. So the only thing I was eating are sweets. I know it sounds weird, but I craved sweets, and it was the only thing I'd hold down. So I'd buy gummy bears, I'd buy chocolates, and that's what I'd eat throughout the day. And then I discovered one day our boss bought us breakfast, and he was quite elderly, so he bought ndoma and ngwashe. I realized I can eat ndoma and ngwashe without vomiting, so I'd eat ndoma and ngwashe every day also. So at home I haven't said I'm pregnant, so coming back home my mom is trying to force me to eat. She's asking me, where are you eating? Are you eating somewhere else? Things like that, and I just didn't want to eat. Yes, so what else did I go through in my first trimester? So I peed a lot. There was nausea, there was food aversions, and then now looking for a hospital to go for my clinics. So personally, I wanted to go through the whole journey in one hospital, which meant where I was going for my clinics was where I wanted to deliver baby if she got here or when she got here safely. So I looked up a lot of hospitals. I looked at their reviews on Google. I talked to people. I approached young moms, especially young moms, and I'll tell you why a bit later. I approached young moms, asked them where they had delivered, the cost, such things, and the hospital I decided to go to was close to where the baby's dad was staying. So I chose that one, and I went for my first clinic when I was 14 weeks. Yes, my first clinic at that hospital I went when I was 14 weeks, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember. Was I 14 weeks? Yes, I was 14 weeks, or at least I think I was 14 weeks. So at that time, you're given an injection, TB, vaccination. Let me tell you, that was painful. Over here on your arm. Upper shoulder, I don't know. Upper arm, not upper shoulder, upper arm. It was very painful. I got swollen. I felt sick the next day. When I went to work, I couldn't work. Where was I? So after the jab, it was quite painful. I felt almost sick. You see the way you feel when you have malaria. General body weakness, cold. It was cold, but I was feeling really cold. And now the nausea is still there. By the way, I was given medicine for the nausea, but it wasn't helping at all. Actually, taking down the pills was also a problem. So yeah, but I kept on taking them. Yeah, so I went home early that day. Like after lunch, I stayed a few minutes and went back home. Yeah, and slept. And the next day I was okay. I was feeling fine. My arm was still really painful, but I was feeling fine. So after that, yeah, the feeling went away, and then the pain went away some days after. So during my first trimester, since I wasn't showing at all, I thought it was wise of me to go for hiking at Menengai. It's the worst decision I ever made, because whatever problems I got there, I carried it all through my pregnancy. So we went for hiking inside the crater, not quite the slopes inside. It was the hardest thing I ever did, considering the fact that I was pregnant. It was quite tough, and I ended up hurting a joint. Excuse me. I ended up hurting a joint where your back joins your leg. Yes. So it was painful to walk, it was painful to stand. If I sat down, I couldn't sit. If I sat down, I couldn't stand up. And if I stood up, I couldn't sit down. And even sitting in some positions was uncomfortable. I couldn't make sudden movements. That was at that time. So after the hike, I came back home. Yeah. And my joint, whatever, has never been the same after today. But for my first trimester, I'd say the worst thing was the nausea. Also something people don't tell you during pregnancy is that you'll be scared most of it. But during the first trimester is when I was the most scared. Like, if you rated throughout my trimesters how scared I was going to lose that pregnancy, it was during my first trimester. Because first of all, before, I never knew there was something called a miscarriage. Did you know? So from what I had gotten, a miscarriage is where you miscarry, but nothing comes out. So there's no symptoms that you've miscarried. There's nothing. The baby just stops growing for no reason. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. The baby just stops growing. And the reason why that terrified me a lot was so I had quite a number of ultrasounds. I had one at 6 weeks, I had one at 9 weeks, and then the next one at 14 weeks. So the 9 weeks was just to confirm that the bleed I had during my 6 weeks when I went to see the gyna was over, and the baby was safe and the baby was growing well. And then at 14 weeks. So between these 3-4 weeks, you can't know how you're faring on. So one thing the doctor told me was my symptoms being there were a sign that everything was fine. So if my nausea went away even for a day or two, I'd panic. If I felt I had appetite and I was eating well, I'd panic. In short, if anything happened, I'd panic and I'd Google every single thing that happened to me. Yes, and it was terrifying. And you read that at that point, the first trimester is when the risk of miscarriages are highest. And don't ask me, I was thinking so much about miscarriages. It was because of the bleed that I had. So my head had not wrapped itself around the fact that that everything was going on well. Sorry, I distracted myself with that. Everything was going on well. What else was hard during that trimester? I don't think there was anything else that was hard apart from the constant fear. Yeah, that was it. And yes, so on the next video, I'm gonna tell you how I told my parents, how they reacted. Yes, and how things are now. Share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get a notification every time I post. And for the next video, so happy to have you guys here. Hope you stay, and I love you all. So like I was like so after yeah